Good morning, happy Wednesday, and welcome into the number one Group of Six college football show on the planet. This is the Group of Five Guys presented by FanDuel, and our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Six football programs, the voice that we know the mainstream sports media is not going to be. We need your help to do that. Hit the follow button on all the social media platforms at Group of Five Guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Believe Network, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the little notification bell. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us. On this episode, we preview the American Conference. Hope you enjoy the show. This is the Group of Five Guys, and we are coming to you live.
They got Old Dominion week 3, and ODU is by no means a layup. The Group of Five Guys told me that, so that has to be true.
We looked at each other, we was like, Mike, the best place to be is a Group of Five. So I'm sitting here with the Group of Five guys, right?
Troy has won, it's been a winner, and it's a special place, so it's why you want the job.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
It was across there. You want to have this thing packed out, have the student section packed out, giving those guys hell on the sideline. I mean, that's part of it. I mean,
win or lose, like we're winning the tailgate.
There's no better place to be developed in this country than Boise State.
Jeff, there's 14 teams in the American Conference as opposed to the 8 teams in the Pac or 10 teams in some of the other ones. So this is going to be potentially a longer show. So we are going to have to get right into this thing, my friend.
No, there's no doubt about it. Let me tell you, there's so many teams, it feels like, in this conference. And as I'm going through position group by position group, Sprouse, I'm seeing this player. I was like, wasn't he at App last year? And then you got this player. I was like, wasn't he at Memphis last year? I can't keep track with all these new head coaches, all the transfers on multiple teams that have kind of been mainstays from the last couple of years. Just all have new coaches and new rosters.
Yeah. Well, and then same thing as I'm looking through rosters and schedules, I'm thinking, oh, I like them as a favorite. But then you get down to the next one, you're like, they might be pretty damn good too. And then they're going to be good too. And then you get down to who you sort of assume are the maybe not top half of this conference. And you're like, I think they might be a dark horse. And then I'm like, well, I don't know why nobody's talking about this team. I like them too. And now, of course, I'm guilty of liking everybody. You know what I'm saying? But I think we got some good teams. We got some a lot of depth to this conference. But a lot of unknown in this conference because of how many guys are from the portal.
Tons of unknowns. And I'm going to say the biggest probably factor of who's going to make the championship game, what's your schedule draw? Because with 14 teams, you could get such a favorable draw where you're not going to play 3 of the better teams and possibly one of the favorites. And you're going to have a pretty easy cruise as long as you take care of business to the championship game. Somebody's going to get left out. That's just going to happen. So I don't know. I think when you get above 10 teams, to be honest, it's too many. And if you do choose to have 14 teams, I think you have to have divisions. I think you really do, or else you're just going to get into this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you run into the risk of, if you have 2 really, really good teams that you would want representing your conference in a potential CFP, one of them might get left out of the championship game. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, Navy kind of had that argument last year that they should have been in there, sitting at 11-1, and they're not even playing for a championship. But anyway, last year, of course, Tulane went to the CFP, lost relatively handily to Ole Miss. A lot of controversy there. They beat North Texas in a really kind of dominant fashion in the championship game at home. You've got tons of new coaches. Coach Huff to Memphis, Will Hall hired internally at Tulane, Neil Brown to North Texas, Alex Mortensen promoted sort of at UAB, Brian Hartline over to South Florida. So, Jeff, I will start with you. Biggest question mark or storyline in the American?
I think the biggest storyline is with all these new head coaches, and even in some of the second year coaches that we have in this conference, who can flip their roster right away and compete for a conference championship? That's to me the biggest storyline and the biggest question, because you have Huff at Memphis who has done that really, in his last 2 stops. Can Hartline do that out South Florida at a place where you have a ton of resources? It's a great place to be in Tampa. They always got athletes down there. Can he do it? Can Harrell at ECU, who's lost a lot of his production from a year ago on both sides of the ball, can he flip his roster and compete? So that's to me the biggest question mark.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And then my question mark or storyline is kind of tagging off of that is how much, if at all, do your top programs fall off? All the ones that lost a coach and lost a bunch of guys in the roster. Everybody just assumes Tulane, North Texas, South Florida are going to drop off. Memphis is the only one that people don't necessarily see as much of a drop off, but how much do they drop off, or how much do they improve off of last year for any of those teams? And if they do drop off a little bit, then who comes up into that tier, right? Is it East Carolina that goes from really good solid to championship contender? Is it FAU, Tulsa, right? Like who's going to come into the mix and be a contender? Or do we see more dominance from, the Memphis, Tulanes, South Floridas of the world? And then what do Army and Navy do, right? Because they, like, you want to talk about South Florida, Memphis, Tulane, Army and Navy have been winning 10 and 11 games every year.
No doubt.
So do one of them get back into the mix? So a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns, a lot of teams. So this may be one where I'm going to hedge a lot of my predictions by putting multiple contenders and multiple dark horses, more than likely. But we'll start with the favorites, Jeff. And I think I will start because I think this is across the board, on paper, guy for guy, roster for roster. Every magazine, every prediction has UTSA as probably the odds-on favorite to win this conference. And at one time, and I've repeated this a bunch, I haven't verified it in a while. At one time, they were the FanDuel favorites to make the CFP out of all the G6. I want to say it was like something like 20-something%, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty high
to make it. So, but here's the thing about UTSA. They've got probably the most sure thing at quarterback in the American, maybe in the group of 6. They bring back a bunch of skill. Will Henderson, electric factory at running back. But Jeff, back-to-back 7-6 seasons for UTSA.
Yeah, and they've kind of struggled on the road the last couple of years. Obviously, we know what an advantage it is to play in the Alamo Dome, and they're going to get plenty of games, this year in meaningful games in the Alamo Dome. But they got to figure out how to win on the road. But in my opinion, how you do that is with great quarterback play, because he's going to calm everybody down. He's going to keep the offense on schedule, and McCown is that guy. He is a proven veteran at this point, almost 3,000 yards last year, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Also got another 5 on the ground as well. So he's mobile. He can get outside. And then you talk about that really 2-headed monster between McCown and Henderson in the backfield. The question is, you got to replace offensive line production. And then you do have Amador coming back on the outside, but you lost your top, receivers from a year ago. I think they'll be able to replace that. I think they have the most continuity in the entire conference coming back, really at the most important positions outside of the offensive line. I think they're the clear-cut favorite. They just got to be the team that really, I think we have felt like they were the last couple of years. They've kind of underwhelmed. They'll have a great win, and then they'll have like a head-scratching loss. So they just got to figure that piece out, especially on the road. But with McCown running the show, to me, they're the clear-cut favorite in this conference.
Yeah, you mentioned it, 28-4 at home in the last 5 seasons, which sounds great until you realize that they're about the opposite on the road in the last couple. And when you look at their schedule, they got some road games that are tough. So they're at Texas State, at Texas right off the bat, right? They get Rio Grande Valley, at home, surely that's a win to open the season. At Texas State, who's had their number. At Texas, obviously going to be tough. They're many people's favorite to win the whole thing. But Jeff, they got a stretch in October that to me is going to be where we need to see the consistency of Owen McCown, of that offense, of the entire team, where they go South Florida at home, Navy at home, then they're at Tulane, at Florida Atlantic, and then North Texas at home. So that right there is where you've typically seen UTSA, maybe they come out and they dominate South Florida at home. And maybe they dominate Navy, they beat Navy at home. And then they go to Tulane or FAU and just look like a totally different team. And that's what worries me for UTSA. I'm having a hard time committing to the fact that, I mean, you look at the roster, should be really good, but how are they going to play on the road? And I'm concerned with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge concern. It's been their biggest issue for the last couple of years. I'm just going to buy Owen McCown. When you have quarterback production that's returning and he's, been a multiple year starter, I'm going to roll with that. Outside of a new roster, a new coach, like, to me, they're the sole favorite. I don't know everybody else in this conference, realistically, outside of Army has a lot returning. Navy has some guys, but for me, it's UTSA as the lone favorite. Now, my contender category may be 100 teams long.
Yeah.
But no, I think having Navy, South Florida, and North Texas all at the Alamo Dome is huge for their schedule. You do have some difficult stretches. I think that Texas stretch is incredibly difficult, but it doesn't matter. They could lose both of those games. All you got to do is roll through conference, take care of business. So,
yeah, you're right. Like, they're the most certain thing, it seems like,
if there's such a thing.
But the question mark is how they're going to play on the road. I mean, that's really it for me, because if they can replicate what they do at home on the road, then you're looking at a 10-win at least team, I think. That's the only favorite you have, Jeff.
That's it. UTSA. Everybody else has far too many question marks.
So I'm going to take another favorite because I like this team a lot, even though there's a lot of questions, but I think Charles Huff has already answered these questions elsewhere, right? I like Memphis a lot, Jeff. I like Memphis a lot, and I told you this 2 or 3 weeks ago. This kid Marcus Stokes, I like him, and let's not forget this was a what do you call it? Elite 11, all the things quarterback coming out of high school. And then he made the fatal mistake of Snapchatting himself singing a rap song. And we know what that could potentially entail. Okay. So he ends up, he's a Penn State commit. He flips to University of Florida and signs with Florida. And then they get wind of him Snapchatting himself, singing a rap song. I don't know what rap song it was. So he ends up at Division II West Florida, who is a Division II powerhouse, right?
No doubt.
And I know it's Division II. But you watch the tape a little bit. He can run. He can throw across his body. He can throw on the move. You liked his number one receiver that ended up at James Madison, right? So you watch both of their tape, and they definitely jump off the screen for you, right? And here's the other thing. You look at his body type, 6'2", 210. Jeff, Memphis hired the offensive coordinator, Kevin Decker, who was at Old Dominion last year, with another quarterback who was 6'2", 212, 210. Colton Joseph. Now, I'm not over here saying Marcus Stokes is Colton Joseph by any means, because that kid was elite in all aspects. I don't think Stokes can run it the way that Colton Joseph can run it. I mean, Colton Joseph is like a damn running back, like a legitimate running back. Could have probably played that position. Stokes is probably not that good. But we look at the talent that Memphis will put around him as opposed to an Old Dominion potentially, and you bring in the same coordinator, I think they're going to use him very similar. I just think that's going to bring a dynamic to the Memphis offense that will be a huge pain in the ass, along with who they're going to have at skill. They're going to have a good offensive line. That's Memphis, in a nutshell. So I just think this kid's a game changer, along with the OC.
No, I agree with you. I like this kid a lot. After pulling the tape and watching him, anybody that throws for 3,000 plus yards, a ton of touchdowns. He's a baller. I don't care what level you are. Like, you got to be a good player in order to recognize coverage, deliver the ball on time, keep the offense humming. And West Florida certainly had that. Now it's definitely a step up. But their offensive line is going to be big. You bring over a lot of guys and Chapman on the outside at receiver from Southern Miss. But then you flip to the defensive side of the ball for Memphis. This is where I think they're going to be dominant. Jamon Tapp. I mean, it's basically Southern Miss's ones and depth pieces that come over.
Yeah.
But Tapp on the outside, I think, is going to be a game wrecker. 70 tackles, 7.5 sacks a year ago at Southern Miss. Mike Montgomery also comes over. I talked about him. He was a player I drafted in my G6 draft. Like, they are going to be a nightmare, especially in the front seven for opposing offenses. So when you have the quarterback coming over that has a ton of production, it may take them a week or two to get that figured out with live bullets. But if your defense can come in right away and smack people in the mouth, that's going to help that offense out and give them a little more time.
Yeah, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, sure, it's a lot of transfers, but they're really just putting on a different helmet.
Correct.
Right? I mean, a lot of them have been playing together, but you mentioned it might take a week or two to figure out. Well, that's the bad news for Memphis, right? Because they don't have that long. Matter of fact, they got 10 days from right now to play at UNLV on week 0. Who was my Mountain West champion, if you go back and watch our Mountain West show. Then they play Arkansas State, who we'll talk about on Friday, is probably going to be a lot of people's dark horse-ish, if you will, in the Sun Belt. You got to think they'll be better. And then they got to go up to Boise, who's my pick to win the pack and many people's pick to make the playoffs. So, like, you got Memphis going at UNLV, at Boise, in who might be the 3 best teams in the G6, in my opinion. Right now, probably that's where I would lean.
Yeah.
So you're going to find out real quick.
There's no question. You are going to find out right away. But again, like I stated with UTSA, they could lose all those games. Not that I think they're going to. Doesn't really matter, right? Like, yes, you got to be ready a week quicker than everybody else. Yeah, you got a ton of transfers, but we've seen Huff do this. This is like, if I'm going to have faith in a coach to come in and flip a roster and get them bought in with probably the biggest NIL budget potentially in the entire group of 6, like, yeah, Huff's a great one to go with. But if you win the American, which they avoid UTSA and North Texas in conference, doesn't really matter what happens at UNLV and at Boise. That is a tough slate to start out the season. But UNLV is also dealing with the same thing, in my opinion, that Memphis is. Although it's Mullen's second year, he's got a ton of transfers coming in. So who can flip? Who can get their guys ready to go in week 0? It's a huge, massive matchup for the entire G6 and a playoff picture. But realistically, if you have a 1 or 2 loss team and you're an American champion, you probably have the best spot to make that CFP position. And then after the bye week, you get Charlotte, UAB to either get healthy, get your things figured out before you go at Tulane, ECU, Army, South Florida Navy. Like that late tier part of their schedule is difficult, but it's not it's not crazy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy.
I know.
And that's where. But here's the thing, Jeff. You're right. A 2-loss American made the CFP last year, but not if Boise is also, not if those 2 losses are UNLV and Boise, and then UNLV is sitting there with a loss or 2, or Boise sitting there with a loss or 2. You know how it is. It all plays itself out. It all works out just fine. And then what you don't want to do if you're Memphis and ruin it for everybody is go beat both UNLV and Boise and then
have 3 losses,
lose to Charlotte and Temple and ruin it for the whole damn conference. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I like Memphis a lot. So I had them as a favorite. So we'll move on. I take it you had Memphis in the contender category.
Let me.
I mean, surely you did, right? Surely they're not a dark horse.
No, yeah, I had them as contenders.
All right. So let's get over to the rest of them. So I've got UTSA, Memphis as favorite. Jeff has UTSA as the favorite. Let's look at the defending champs, Jeff, Tulane. In my opinion, you can look at Tulane from 3 different angles of how they were last year. Like, and this is what you're hearing across the board about Tulane. Number 1 is they weren't very good, and great coaching and John Summerall led them to a lot of wins. Maybe. Number 2, they were really good, and they happened to play down to some of their competition late in games or too often against the South Alabamas and things like that. Number 3, they were exactly what they put on the field and exactly what they put on tape. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, we talked about it towards the end of the season last year where we were like, I don't know. I think James Madison might be better than Tulane. We don't like, they're not as good as they should be, right? I mean, Summerall would talk about that. But I'm kind of at that number 3. They were pretty good. They won a lot of games, good defense. You know, they were a little conservative at the end of games at times that allowed teams to creep back in. But when you look at Tulane's roster, and you talk about flipping a roster, and you look at what everybody else lost or didn't lose, like they didn't lose as much as you think, Jeff. Like losing 20-something transfers is not a ton when you lose a head coach and you're coming off of a college football playoff run. Like normally you're getting gutted after that. And they didn't, as opposed to what what happened at North Texas and some of the other schools. So I'm there. We got to figure out who's going to play quarterback. You got Zion Chris, who's the runner. You got Samanza, who's the passer. I think you go with Chris. If you're in doubt, you go with the guy that can run, in my opinion.
Yeah, he gives you the biggest upside. I think, right? Like, I want the Zion Chris from Louisiana. You know what I mean? A couple years ago, that's a playmaker. He's dynamic. Like, surely he's improved over the last couple years. I didn't watch him. You didn't see the film much at Houston, I don't think, like a year ago. But yeah, I mean, you get McClure back. He's going to be a great running back, and then you get Jalen Lucas.
McClure's hurt.
Is he?
McClure got hurt in camp. It's like a foot.
Oh, no.
So it doesn't seem like a season ender, but
that's good.
Here
Breaking news.
we go.
Didn't see that. Well,
let's pretend like he's back.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have him. I think unless it lingers. Sometimes foot injuries linger, but if you got him, you got Turner in there. You also got Jalen Lucas, who's a transfer. Was at Indiana, Florida State. So they're gonna have skill position guys. To me, Tulane, when you lose a head coach like John Summerall, I don't think you can just completely just ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the top coaches in the country, and at any level, in my opinion, you do have Brown and Hill on the outside, so you've got some continuity with Brown Stevens coming back. I don't know. I'm not sold on the quarterback position because we don't know who it is. It's your most important piece. Your offensive line, really, Elijah Baker is the only returning starter. So you got 4 new guys, an entire new group essentially coming in. Like, they got some things to figure out. They're a contender for me. I'm just not super high on them like I were a year ago because I think their defense was elite and it carried their offensive deficiencies throughout most of the season.
Yeah, I will say this. Last year, Retzlaff was their leading rusher, which I don't ever think is a good thing per se, especially when you got running backs. But I think Zion Chris is a better runner than Retzlaff. So if you're in that same situation now, I don't think they will. I don't think they're gonna. Like, I think you got to be better from a running back position and a receiver standpoint if you're gonna win this conference again. But I think Chris is a better runner than Retzlaff. And the receiving room, like, sure, you lose some guys, but I don't think the receivers were very good the last couple of years. Like, how many games? A lot of drops, a lot of fumbles. I mean, what was the game? I think it was the Memphis game 2 years ago. They fumbled like 3 times in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff where, like, the whole returning production, and I get that. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, all right, well, I mean, those guys weren't doing us a ton of favors anyway.
Yeah.
But I think they got to be better in the receiving room, and that's where it's scary because you did lose some guys, right? Offensive line, they're a little undersized, a little young, so that would always be a concern. But, the defense, last year when you talk with the coaches, they really loved the D-line, and there were some guys that were the 7th, 8th, 9th guys on the defensive line that didn't really need to play a ton last year that Summerall would talk about would start on any other team. And those are going to be the guys this year. So I think you're right. I think the defense is going to carry them quite a bit, even more so than they did last year. But you got a pretty tough schedule right off the rip too. You get Duke and Kansas State again, both on the road this time. But then you're at Army, home versus Memphis, home versus UTSA. It's good you get those 2 at home. I'm just I'm not sure. I think the cloud over Tulane, I think, is that you lost some excitement when they hired internally with Will Hall. But I don't like. Yeah, he struggled at Southern Miss, but outside of
Southern Miss hard.
It's been tough there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and he wasn't at Southern Miss like when Huff could just bring his Marshall team down there and flip it right away. So I think maybe some of the critique on him is maybe a little unfair. I mean, some of it's fair, of course.
Yeah,
but
I think it has less to do with Will Hall and more to do with John Summerall not being there. Now, they're a contender for a reason. I think their defense is going to be real. I don't think it'll be as good as a year ago, but Rogers is back. Chinchu is back. So you have leaders on the defense from a year ago that can kind of help carry that over. Will Hall being there gives you some continuity. Like, I think they're going to be up there, but their schedule is difficult, in my opinion. Yeah. At Duke is a difficult home opening game. I think South Alabama. I think that's going to be a bit of a dogfight. It's kind of been that way. Really, in my opinion, other than the year we went like 2 or 3 years ago, Tulane kind of handled it.
Michael Pratt year.
Yeah. At Kansas State, that's going to be a tough game. Obviously, you got the Southern Miss, and then you go into the bye. But that at Army, Memphis, UTSA, you also play Tulsa, who I'm pretty high on, and then you finish at South Florida, who I also think is going to be very talented. So, I don't know. They're a contender. Yeah. I think they're up there. I'm just not sold quite yet until I see their offense. I have to see their offense.
Yeah, and the good news about hiring Will Hall is you kept a lot of the staff too. I mean, a couple of guys went to Florida with John Summerall, but they kept a lot of the staff. Taylor Polk, I think, is the youngest defensive coordinator in the country, and we talked to Summerall about him. They love that guy, love him. So, he may be young, maybe it takes him some time, but I think that'll be with a young guy is an aggressive play caller. You know what I'm saying? So I look forward to watching them. We'll see, but I think they'll play with a chip on their shoulder too. It's like, dude, we were in the playoff a year ago. Any other team that was in the playoff is preseason top 10.
No doubt.
And here we are, and we're not even getting votes or anything. So anyway, let's move on. Another contender for me, you mentioned South Florida being really talented, and South Florida pissed me off so bad last year. I mean, how many times again in our text, he played with their food too damn much. I mean, you'd watch Byron Brown, looks like he's playing, when you'd play at the park when you were little and one of the older kids would be like all-time quarterback and run around. It's like, that's what Byron Brown would look like. And you'd be like, what are you doing? But I never really thought he could throw that well. No. I mean, different topic, but all the excitement about Auburn, I'm not really buying it, right? I mean, and it was another one where everybody kind of knew Golish was gone. They toyed around too much. They lost a lot of games they shouldn't have lost. A lot of hype around this Van Buren kid from LSU this year at quarterback, Jeff. And he had a big bowl game, I think, is what a lot of the hype is coming from. But still a little unknown there. A lot of unknowns for South Florida. I mean, it's an entire new roster.
I agree. It's a new roster. You have obviously Heartline coming in, but I like some of the pieces they brought in. MVB, kind of like RVD, Rod Van Dam. MVB, I think he's going to be a good player. He has meaningful snaps under his belt, which I think is huge. I think they upgraded in the running back room, getting Crowther out of Morgan State, 1,000-yard rusher. You do have Collins coming back, who was a role player for you last year. Didn't see the field much. But I think the receiver room is going to be dominant. I really do. With Ruben, had almost 500 yards, 5 touchdowns a year ago. But the old boy from UTEP, Kenny Odom, one of my favorite players.
Love Kenny Odom.
Is at South Florida now. I think he's going to have a monster year. They're going to go 4 or 5 wide. They're going to spread the ball out. So there's a lot of mouths to feed on the outside. But you give me Kenny Odom and in any offense, especially a pass-dominant one, I think he's going to have a great year if he can stay healthy. Offensive line, you only got one returning full starter, so that concerns me a little bit. It's going to be a new group, but almost every team in the country, to be honest with you, is. This offensive line, though, is big. 6'5", 6'7", 6'6". So that tells me, like, they're going to be big and physical at the point of attack. Now, just because you're big doesn't mean you automatically can move, which they're going to have to be able to do. But with the quarterback they brought in, with the receivers, with the running back, you have some like proven veteran pieces that is going to help this offense right away, I think.
Yeah, and what you know about Brian Hartline is he, at his time at Ohio State, world-class recruiter. So you know he's going to be able to recruit some guys, and he did get a lot of, you mentioned it, a lot of guys that were, getting some playing time, not as much as they probably would like. Bunch of Big Ten guys. I think they're big up front. It's going to be different. I don't think they're going to go as fast as the goalish offense tried to go. They're going to be more Big Ten look, right? Like big, physical. They'll throw it all over the place, but Kenny Odom with a guy like Brian Hartline as his head coach, like you got to imagine the receivers are going to be coached really well. Brian Hartline, former Dolphin, by the way, in case anybody was concerned.
I don't think they were
curious or concerned, but I'll tell you what else I like. They brought in the defensive coordinator from East Carolina last year. And you look at how East Carolina played a year ago. It's a ton of sacks, turnovers, ton of pressure, aggressive. They were almost like like the old Manny Diaz defenses where they just bring all kinds of stuff, super aggressive, not this conservative prevent crap. Like we're trying to get sacks, we're trying to pressure the quarterback, we're trying to get turnovers. So when you get into playing at UTSA and Owen McCown, and you get into playing some of these quarterbacks, that ultra aggressive, no matter how good a quarterback is, pressure is the biggest thing that can stop them.
Yeah.
So I look for them to be super aggressive, and with the athletes that they brought in and the speed and stuff that South Florida always has, I think their defense could be really good.
I agree with you. Aldridge is a name that I think is quickly on the rise. A good friend of mine, actually, him and Benny C, they went to school together. So we were hopefully going to get him on the show if we can. I know the season's getting ready to kick off, so that's always tough to get the coaches during the year. But I think that's between their offense and Aldridge coming over from ECU, who's had a great defense a year ago, and then you just look at their schedule, Strauss.
About the opposite as it was last year, huh?
Yeah. And this is where I think they make this is their best piece to South Florida is FIU at home. At Army is a tough, like week 2, better be ready. You got to go up to Minchie Stadium. Like that is a tough conference matchup. But it's not like unmanageable. You know what I mean? And then you get Delaware State and at Bowling Green. That's your non-con. This might be one of the easier non-cons out there. And then you roll into conference after that week 2 Army game. Temple on the road at UTSA is going to be tough. Kent State at home, who I don't know if Kent State's quite there yet. I like their conference and non-conference, to be honest with you.
Jeff, my concern, for South Florida is this. What if they're 8-0 after they play UAB on Halloween? Okay. And then the rumors start. Oh, Brian Hartline, somebody's been fired already, right? In the Big Ten or in the SEC. So this is by that point in the season. So, Brian Hartline. South Florida's 8-0 again. Brian Hartline's the next name. And then on top of that, now you got the meat of your schedule. Now you're at East Carolina, you're home versus Memphis, you're at Florida Atlantic, and then you're home versus Tulane on Friday, Thanksgiving, which that Friday after Thanksgiving is always a disaster for somebody. Maybe it's a disaster for Tulane. We don't know. And so that's my concern there, which, we'll find out about that. That's going to happen somewhere in the country where some coach is rumored to be out by the middle of November and they start playing like crap. So, but yeah, I mean, compared to last year where they've got, Boise, Florida, Miami in the first 3-4 weeks of the season. I mean, this is light for them. And I like it quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm not as concerned with the rumor mill, especially in year 1 for Harlan, even if they happen to be 8-0. I don't think he's one, and I could be wrong, but that gets brought up first. I think there's several other coaches that their name would get brought up first. So I think they're fine there.
No, that's fair. Well, Jeff, so who else do you have as a contender? I've got a couple more still.
Yeah, you go for it. I got a couple more as well.
I like East Carolina as a contender, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I say this every time we talk about him, but I was the first person to what's the word? To sell Blake Harrell as being, I'm wanting Blake Harrell to be the head coach when he was interim. And he's done a hell of a job. 14-5 since taking over as head coach. And again, we talked about how aggressive their defenses have played under him. So we'll see, can they keep that? They lose the DC, but I think they'll be fine. It's the head coach is still there, so I think they'll be fine. They've got really good experience on the offensive line coming back, and guys that are newcomers that have played a lot of snaps. But again, the question is, who's going to be the quarterback? You got some weapons. Brock Spalding comes back. It's going to be tough to replace both Smith kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some weapons at wide receiver, but Brock Spalding's a damn good player, so he'll be the top guy. They bring in Ashton Gray at running back, transfer from North Texas. I think that's a big pickup for them, along with the experienced offensive line. But who's going to play quarterback? Is it Emory Williams? I think he's probably the guy. He's prototype, right? 6'5", 225. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school, just never really could get there. I think he was – I don't know if he was there last year, but he's been at Miami, of Florida for a while. You got Cam Ward, and then you get Carson Beck. So where are you going to fit in? But I like the Pirates, Jeff.
Yeah, I do too. And they have a lot of question marks for me at multiple positions, but I'm putting my faith in Harrell being able to get that roster flipped around. You lose a lot of production on both sides of the ball. You lose your DC. I think they're a contender for me. They may take just a small step back with that, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they hit on all, most of these guys and are able to, get back to really where they've kind of been the last couple of years under Harrell's tutelage. They're the beginning of their schedule to me is a bit tough. Sprouse.
Yeah. Well, anytime you got to go at Alabama to open it, right? I mean, you're going to have, how healthy do you come out of that game? Yeah. And then you get App State. We'll see. And then a lot of people like Old Dominion. You're at Old Dominion, who's going to be another physical team. And then App State, it's kind of sort of a rivalry, right? Yeah. I mean, how banged up are you out of Alabama is going to tell a lot.
Correct. But probably the main reason outside of Harrell that I have him as a contender this year is they avoid Navy, UTSA, and Tulane. And then your final four, conference games are at home. So not their final four.
They got
Charlotte and Army, but
Army on the road.
They're meaningful ones. So I think they're a contender. By the way, I had South Florida as a dark horse. Just
as a dark horse.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And you got East Carolina as a contender.
I do have ECU as a contender.
The question, Jeff, and this is what I mentioned at the top of the show, of how big of a drop-off do some of your top teams take? Like, because East Carolina, even if you mentioned maybe they take a small step back, well, maybe Tulane and Memphis and Navy, maybe they take a giant step back, which would then put East Carolina ahead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the question mark, is just how much of a drop-off. Because East Carolina, for them, like, they've been sitting there. I mean, hell, they won 9 games last year.
Yeah.
They're close. But are you going to get a South Florida that comes out of almost nowhere and is elite? Are you going to get a Memphis that turns out to be elite? Is Tulane going to still be there? So that's the question there. I have one more contender.
Oh, you got? Well, I got Navy as a contender. Is that who you have?
That's my next one. Yeah, and I have him as a contender, but I'm going to be transparent here. Sorry about that. Be transparent here, Jeff. I'm not buying what everybody else is buying.
I'm not either.
I think everybody's looking at the top half of their schedule, but the top half of their schedule's been that way for a while. But I think they get UTSA in the top half. But the first thing that comes to my mind with Navy is you lose Horvath, you lose Heidenreich on offense, you lose Landon Robinson on defense that anchored your defensive line, and sure, the academies churn guys, right? You lose guys, you get guys. It happens all the time. But you don't often have 3 NFL guys on a Navy roster that all get drafted and picked up. So you're not just losing a veteran on the defensive line. You're losing like an all-time great on the Navy defensive line. You're losing Heidenreich, an all-time great on your offense. So that's my concern, is I think they'll be fine. But losing guys like that are not just plug and play up, next man up. Most of the time it is. And Braxton Woodson, a lot of people like him. He can go. But Horvath, Horvath was really good. And they had some weapons that they're not going to have this year.
Yeah, not only was Horvath good on the ground and he could run that offense, with his eyes closed, he was really good throwing the ball. And I'm not sure Woodson's as capable of a passer. Now, I'm sure he's improved in the offseason. He's a senior. Like, you have a lot of upperclassmen on this team. But for me, I have him as a contender because I respect Newberry, what he's been able to do there. You have a veteran offensive line, which is always great when you have an academy team. And then their schedule. To me, that's it. Now, if they can, like you said, churn those guys back in, and Lastory has a great year, Brian has a great year, like Hutchinson, who I think has the potential to have a monster year at the receiver position for them. Like, you can do that, then they are going to be top of this conference, potentially a favorite. Yeah. But I just don't know how you return that much or replace that much offensive production.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. And then, like, sure, the schedule might seem a little lighter, but you're on the road 4 out of your first 6 games at FAU, at UAB, at Air Force, at UTSA. Like, FAU, Air Force, UTSA on the road. I mean, those are not, like, that ain't cake.
No.
And then you get to what's happened the last couple of years for Navy. You get North Texas at home, and then you get that Notre Dame game on Halloween, which hadn't gone too well for Navy in the last couple of years. And then, you get Temple at home. I think Temple is going to be a lot better. You get Memphis at home, Charlotte on the road, and then you got the Army game. So, I mean, like, it's not as easy.
I agree.
As it looks like, as it's just because you're getting maybe who's typically been in the last couple of years in the bottom half of the conference at the front of the schedule. But then, like, Notre Dame, Temple, Memphis, Charlotte, and Army, that's not easy either. So especially when you got a bunch of new guys coming in to replace it. Big time talent. I do trust Newberry, though.
Yeah.
If anybody can do it.
Yeah. If anybody can do it, it'll be him. But yeah, I just, you avoid Tulane ECU, which is great. There are 2 teams that have been at the top of this conference last several years. Yeah. Just the production thing for me scares me, but I'm willing to give them a contender status.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too. But a lot of people have them as like a favorite, like, so yeah, I'm not there yet with Navy. So that's all I have for my contenders. Do you have another contender?
Let me make sure I'm not. There's so many teams. I got to make sure I'm not.
Jeff, I have 4 dark horses just in case you were
Holy
curious.
Smokes. Yeah, I do. I have one more.
Okay, who you got?
Got to scroll through me old notes here. I'm going with Army.
Okay, I have Army as a dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing this year is continuity. Who's coming back? And whenever you have an academy team that's a bit down, I feel like they had a down year. And even though they were 7-6 a year ago, you got Helms coming back. You have the entire offensive line, which is basically all seniors coming back. You got some skill players, Rendina, at that fullback spot, or if that's what you want to call it, Samari Howard. Like, I think offensively, Army has a chance to be really, really good. I don't know if it's quite Captain America good, but you give me senior leadership after kind of a down year with Jeff Monken. I like Army, especially when you get into their schedule.
Yeah, Jeff, I like Army. I might be one of the only people in the world, maybe you are too, unbeknownst to me, that I like Army better than I like Navy.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, and it's for the reasons that you just said, because where Navy's losing quarterback, top production on offense, best player on defense, Army's not. And then they bring back, I talk about him every time we talk about Army for the last 4 years. Brady Small is your center. So you have that leadership in place at Army. And what I love the most about both Army and Navy is, will you follow their strength coaches on the socials? It's just moving weight, dude. And it's just work. It's not a bunch of cute Instagram worthy, viral workouts. It's, we're going to put a bunch of weight on the bar. We're going to pick it up and we're going to put it down. We're going to put it on our back and we're going to squat it. or single leg squat it or deadlift it or hang clean. And it's almost old school. We just get in and we work. And that, in my opinion, is why, like, I know other teams do those, but that's why they lose guys and they just right back to work. It's a perfect display of what they are in real life.
Yeah.
Things happen. We should put our head down and work, and we'll get it done. Doesn't matter. We still got to do what we got to do. The job's got to get done, whether Captain America's here or Cale Helms is here or whoever the next guy is. If Cale Helms goes down, just put our head down and work.
That's exactly right. And when you look at their schedule, we'll look at this real quick. Bryant is a great little tune-up game. It's not Tarleton, you know what I mean, a year ago.
Yeah.
Then you get South Florida in week 2, right at home. So, like, is South Florida going to be ready? We just talked about them. So it's like, if you can get a sneaky conference win in week 2 against a good opponent, like, that is huge. And then you go Temple, Louisiana Tech. Like, those are both games I think that they should win. Tulane, FAU, Tulsa. Like, I love the way their schedule kind of lines up. You are at Memphis. And then the Navy game, that doesn't count in conference. So, you have Rice, like, you have Tulsa on your schedule. I don't know. I like their schedule. I like who they're returning. Senior-led team.
I like it too. I like it. Good pick, Jeff.
Thanks.
So you had him as a contender. See, I had him as a dark horse, but same thing, really. All right. So I have now 3 more dark horses.
Go for it.
I think I know one you're going to go with. So I'll start with one of mine that you knew I was going to go with, and I damn near put them as a contender. Look, you could convince me about 7 or 8 teams. If somebody was like, I got them winning it, you could convince me. You could sell me on it. I think FAU is going to be a lot better. I just think it's the second year down there for Veltkamp, for Zach Kitley. Jeff, FAU is the only team in all of Division I FBS that brings back the entire coaching staff and the starting quarterback. Only team. That's where we are in college football today, by the way. I don't know this for sure, but I bet that was normal 20 years ago.
Oh,
of course the whole staff's back. What do you mean?
Yeah, whole staff. My quarterback's back.
Why wouldn't they be back? You know what I'm saying? But Veltkamp was playing hurt most of last year, Jeff. You bring back the staff, the quarterback, plus you bring back Easton Messer, the top guy at wide receiver, one of the best skill guys. I think they're going to have one of the best offenses in the country, or in the conference, in the country, certainly from a numbers perspective. Big problem, though. Can they stop a soul? Their defense last year, Jeff, allowed the most points per game in FAU program history. And this is where I talk about returning production, because I don't know that it's a good thing that they got 6 guys coming back from that defense.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you offensively. I think they're going to be out of this world if they can stay healthy. Leonard Farrow comes over from Fairmont State, who almost had 1,500 yards a year ago. So I think that gives them even more balance. Messer is back. Veltkamp's supposed to be healthy. It's the defense for me that concerns me. I had him so close to being a dark horse. I just didn't want to have 5 dark horse teams. So I think they're in the everyone else category for me. And it was tough for me to put them there. But it wouldn't shock me if this offense is just so explosive and they hit on a couple defensive players that they got in the portal, and they're right there at the end of the season. But I think, what was it, 49? It was something crazy.
Well, Jeff, and that's my thing.
Like last year.
Because you could go score 45, 50 points
Correct.
every game and win a lot of games, but you still got to play defense if you want to win a title. Whatever title, right? Whether that's an American championship game, whether that's putting yourself in the playoff. Like, I don't think you're going to get, even if they win the American, and let's say they've got a loss or 2, like, even if they win the American and they're scoring 50 points, but they're giving up 45 or something.
Yeah.
I don't think you want that team in the playoff, man. I don't know that I would want it as a rep, because you're going to go get up against Indiana, and it just, they'll be able to hold that 45 points to 25. And then you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble if your defense can't stop anything.
Look, the Owls are going to be really fun to watch this year, but they open up at Florida. You get Navy at home, which if Navy can keep your offense on the sideline, it doesn't matter how many points you can score. You better hit on every possession you have because it's going to be limited. Right. And then you get the Shula Bowl. So, like, it's that first 3 weeks of the season to me is not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, we talked about FIU. I think we both agree they're going to be a lot better. Well, they were a lot better last year, but I think they're going to take another step. I'm guessing that the dark horse that you have is Tulsa.
It is.
Yeah, I have them there also. I have a lot of teams here also. And I know we love Trey Lamb. Trey Lamb is a guy that
friend of the show.
We're gonna have to keep an eye on. Right? We had Trey Lamb on when he was at Gardner Webb. We did an FCS interview as a Group of 5 podcast because we knew.
That's right.
We knew. I'm telling you, we are so far ahead of the game. We had John Summerall on before he coached a game at Troy.
Yeah.
And we called it all, Jeff. It's like I don't understand why people don't trust what we say. I mean, we called Old Dominion not being a layup for Virginia Tech, and they beat them by 3 touchdowns on national television. Anyway, I know you like the quarterback, Baylor Hayes, Jeff.
I do. I love Baylor Hayes. Again, returning a lot of production at key positions for me. Baylor Hayes, 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, did have 6 picks, so we got to clean up our touchdown to interception ratio there. But Damari Alston transfers over. Traquan Jones transfers over. DJ McKinney from New Mexico transfer. Like, I think this running back room has the potential to be, it's very deep and it's loaded. Who's going to be the guy that kind of separates himself in camp? But having 2-3 guys is not a bad thing because you can churn fresh legs. Then you have Josh Smith on the outside who returns. And then the offensive line I really like for Tulsa as well. And I honestly, their schedule is very manageable when you look at it, but I'll let you talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, well, I like Traquan Jones from Old Dominion a lot. And there's a lot of snaps that have been played on that offensive line. Not necessarily, 5 starters coming back, but a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. So how quick can everybody gel together, right? And you figure out who's going to be the guy at running back. But on defense, Jeff, they probably got the best DB room in the conference. Elijah Green had 5 interceptions last year. Zach Williams at safety, 70+ tackles. Tulsa's going to be good, Jeff.
I mean, and then you go and look at their schedule for me. I mean,
can they beat Oklahoma State again?
Might be beat tough. North Texas. I was going to say, can they beat North Texas again? But that you get at Sam Houston, which is you should win that game. East Texas A&M should be a win, and then at Arkansas, like that's not a you're not going to get physically abused in that game. Like you'll get a little dinged up, but you got the new coach there. But and then North Texas, Navy, Rice, like I like that draw to open up conference. Tulane you have on there at UTSA to finish the year, but you avoid ECU, you avoid Memphis, you avoid South Florida. They're a dark horse. I think they can make a run.
Yeah, Jeff, what I don't like about their schedule is they get Navy and Army in a span of 13 days, which that's tough, right? And you get Navy, Rice, and Army 3 straight weeks. So 3 straight sort of option teams, which could be a good thing.
Could be a good thing.
Now, Rice is much different than Navy and Army. Could be a good thing, but if they can't figure it out, then it could be a really bad thing. And then it could also be a bad thing from a physicality standpoint, because then you do get a bye, but then you got Tulane, Florida Atlantic. So that stretch is interesting for me.
Well, Sprouse, let's just say that Navy's not as good as the media thinks they are. Then that's not as difficult as a game. I know it's a triple option. It's always a physical game. So it's like if Navy might not be where some people think they are. If Tulane, where they're at in their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
If Tulsa could pick off some of those teams from the American that have been kind of in the top echelon of this conference, who knows? They could be right in the driver's seat towards the end of the year.
They could be. And keep an eye on that November 14th game versus Florida Atlantic. If that's the situation, because then what you're going to see, keep an eye on that game anyway. But what an awesome matchup between that FAU offense we just talked about and these DBs at Tulsa. And that could be a 60,
Absolutely.
We could be talking points in that game unless Tulsa's DBs are totally locked down, I have one more dark horse.
Oh, you got?
I do. And I think this is like a dark horse B for me. Jeff, I like Temple.
Do you?
And I know I went up there and I got sold on the whole thing. I like the culture they've built. I like Casey Keeler a lot, but Jeff, 4 or 5 starters back on the offensive line. You have an all-American tight end. You have your top 2 wide receivers back. Now, they got to replace the quarterback, Evan Simon, who I loved for a long time. That's another guy I predicted, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
But they like Jackson Smolik at quarterback, transfer from Penn State, who, by the way, they host Penn State in Philly this year.
Little payback game.
Yeah. So Jackson Smolik, they like at quarterback. Look at them last year, Jeff. They were sitting at 5-3 last year, halfway through the season. And then they played their brutal stretch of the schedule. They played East Carolina, Army, Tulane, and North Texas to finish the year, and they lost all of them. So who were they going to beat out of that group, right? I mean, North Texas and Tulane, Army, East Carolina, they all were solid. And I feel like this year they're a little bit lighter on the schedule. They don't play UTSA, don't play Tulane, don't play Florida Atlantic. So I just think they got a chance to be in a lot of games, and maybe squeak a couple out.
No, I like them as a dark horse. I again, you could put
anybody
4 or 5 teams as a dark horse, and I just chose not to go that route. My question is, Penn State, obviously they're not the Penn State of old, but they're going to be big. You're going to be okay physically after that game. Then you got to go on the road at Toledo, who I think is still going to be atop of the MAC. I don't know. I could see it though.
Did you have any other dark horses? Are we on to the everyone else category?
I left it at 2 for me. I tried to keep it I didn't want to abuse the dark horse title. Just pick
I've been abusing it for a long time. Wait till we get to the Sun Belt on Friday. I don't know yet where I'm going there, but so we're in the everyone else category, and I feel terrible about calling North Texas everybody else after the season they had last year. Now, I will say this. I think long-term, Neil Brown's a big-time hire. I think in the short term, I don't think they'll be bad by any means. Like, I don't think you're looking at a 3-win team. Like, I think you're looking at a bowl team, probably. They just lost everything. I mean, they don't have a starter coming back anywhere, Jeff. I think they'll rely more on the run. I think almost obviously with number 1 with Neil Brown, but they do. I'll tell you what, they bring in this kid, Jaheim White at running back, who was a freshman All-American for Neil Brown at West Virginia in 23. So I think you're going to, that's going to be a guy that's getting 20 plus touches every game, and you're going to rely on that. It's going to look a whole lot different in Denton.
Yeah. I mean, Taven Jackson comes over. He's projected to be the number 1. That remains to be seen, but he's been kind of a journeyman where he's been at 4 different places now. So that concerns me a little bit. Like, why have you not stuck at a single place and really been the guy? For me, it's their schedule. You're opening up on the road at Indiana, who's the defending national champion. A lot of people are saying they're one of the favorites to win it again. Then you're UNLV at Texas State. Then you get Houston Christian to kind of lighten it up. And then you're right into conference at Tulsa. You have Navy at UTSA, at Tulane. I think after you could start to realistically, you could start the year 0-3. And what's your momentum? What's your health like? I think it's just a tough schedule draw for North Texas this year.
Yeah, I agree. But I think long-term, I think you'll be fine.
I agree.
I think you'll be just fine. Staying in the state of Texas, let's talk Rice, Jeff. Going to be tough for Rice. I do think if they go with Ja'Cory Brown at quarterback and Quentin Jackson, a running back, I think it'll be a decent little punch, quarterback, running back combo there. My issue with Rice is the defense. They only forced 7 turnovers a year ago. And Jeff, the worst stat of them all, opponents were 100% scoring in the red zone against Rice last year. 30 touchdowns, 11 field goals. That's not good, in case you were wondering. So
I like their backfield. I like those 2 guys. This offense is going to be fun to watch, I think. It's kind of that hybrid spread, but triple option academy kind of principles up front, with some wrinkles in there. But to me, again, similar to North Texas, I think they have a brutal schedule draw. And that's what half of this is. As I'm going through this, because there's question marks everywhere. Every team has question marks outside of maybe a couple, right? And who's got the least amount of, who's got the most? But what is your schedule draw? And you have Houston Christian to open it up. They got to get that win, which I think they will. But could be tough. Houston Christian's going to come in thinking, all right, this is our game. We got a chance to knock off an FBS opponent here.
Yeah.
So they got to be ready there. But then you're at Notre Dame, Western Michigan, at Fresno, Open Up Conference, UTSA, at ECU, Tulsa, at FAU. A lot of offensive firepower through the entire first 7 weeks or whatever it is of their schedule. Can your defense hold up? Can you score enough points? Not sure they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on to UAB. Jeff, the Dilfer experience was not a good one in Birmingham. And I think a big thing for that was, I think he just constantly like shit on the program, kind of.
Yeah,
I mean, it was weird. Like, in some of the things he was saying, like, I don't think he was wrong per se, but you don't say that in the media at the press conference in front of the world to kind of clap at your program. Mortensen seems to be the opposite, right? He seems to be a guy that's glad to be there. He's proud to be there. The players like him. They had that interim coach bump from him when he took over last year. But now it's time, right, to put in the work. Right now, you've had the offseason, you've had some recruits, you've had the portal. I just don't see where the wins are going to come from. I hate it for UAB, but that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, with a bunch of players coming in, you do have a couple of returners, but especially on the offensive line, you got Lepowski and Perez coming back, but you're going to have, it's basically going to be a new group there. Not sure who their quarterback's going to be. I'm with you. I think the American Conference is so deep and talented that if you are in the bottom half of this conference, which UAB is at the current moment, in my opinion, I think it's just tough to scratch out wins. I really do.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, when you have 14 teams and 8 of them are like probably legitimate contenders, yeah, you might have 8 losses to 8 really good teams, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean like you're a terrible team. It just means you're in an incredibly difficult conference. And then, again, when you go into your schedule at Illinois, at Louisiana, you get Navy right off the rip. At Memphis, ECU, South Florida, UTSA, you're playing 3 or 4 of, who we just talked about as we think is our favorite or contenders in this conference. Like, unless you just happen to hit on multiple positions, which they could.
Yeah, they might.
I don't see it on paper.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, last but certainly not least, it's one of our favorite places to go. So I hope for damn sure they can turn this thing around. But Charlotte, man, I don't get it. I get asked any podcast I go on, what's up with Charlotte? And I don't know. I can't figure it out. I cannot figure it out. But they did bring a bunch of guys in the portal. But they didn't bring a bunch of game changer at quarterback guy. Like, they brought in a bunch of depth pieces, which we know that's a big concern, and especially in the group of 6 is depth. But I just don't know where they brought in anybody that's going to flip the program.
Yeah, we'll have to see who the quarterback ends up being, but I love Jaden Barnes at wide receiver. I think he's a big-time playmaker. If they can get him the ball in space, he'll be able to score points and have a lot of yak yards for you. Rutledge and Williams are just kind of going to round out that running back room, I think. Again, to me, it just comes back to schedule. At Ole Miss. A lot of people think that they're one of the top teams in the SEC. At App State. It's whether App State wants to admit it. Like, to me, it's a bit of a rivalry game, but App State, that's a game that they need as a win on their schedule, or they could have a very tough stretched start to theirs. So Louisiana, who's one of my Sun Belt favorites, Memphis, ECU, Navy, they do avoid UTSA, they do avoid Army. Like, it's not the worst conference draw, but that starts of the season. Like, how healthy are you going to be after Ole Miss?
Right. Yeah, and that's where, some of that depth might help. But again, I don't think you brought anybody that's going to allow you to compete with South Florida, Memphis, Tulane, all those guys we've talked about.
I love Tim Alvin, though.
Love him. And I think if anybody can get it right, it's going to be him. So I would tell the Charlotte faithful, we got no choice. but to be patient, right?
Yeah, got to hang in. They've been hanging for a while.
Been hanging for a long time. I'll tell you what, Jeff, that game, Charlotte versus App State, the App State faithful won't want to hear it, but that is a huge game.
It
Because
really is.
they've got to get it. So we'll talk about that on Friday. Jeff, that was pretty damn good for how many teams we had. Barely over an hour. We had to go quick. Apologize for maybe not getting as in depth with some of these teams as we've done before on some of the other conferences, but we were trying to get through it. We got jobs to go to, school to take kids to, and all that stuff. But Jeff, do you have a bold prediction for the American?
And this is one team kind of centered. I could give you one where there's 7 teams that are still alive for the conference championship race, but I'm going to go with one team. I'm going to say that Tulsa is alive and well going into the last couple weeks of the season to make the conference championship game.
Jeff, Tulsa's FanDuel win total's 5.5. So is Temple's, by the way. That's not a low number.
No,
for either of those teams.
Trey Lamb's going. He's got it going on.
Yeah. Well, and the concern there is how good is Tulsa going to get before Trey Lamb finds his name in a lot of conversations.
Right.
For me, bold prediction. I don't know. I don't know. I would say this. I'll give you a bold prediction. I'm not saying that they're going to win the conference. I'm not saying that they're going to make the CFP, but I think Will Hall is going to answer the questions. I'll give you that. And I think the Tulane faithful will be satisfied with the performance. Again, that might be 7 wins. Right? When you look at their schedule, it might be 7 wins. That's what I said on the Uptown shows. Tulane might go 7-5, but it could be a 7-5 that you could be excited for going forward. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
They're not going to be calling for his head is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I like that. I can go for that.
Jeff, all that being said, I'm going to take for a winner of this conference, I'm going to take Memphis over South Florida. And I think Memphis because of everything I talked about. I think South Florida because by the time they get to the meat of their schedule, they'll have come together and they'll be a really good team.
I like that. I do have Memphis in the championship game. I think that Huff has shown that he can flip a roster. He's got a quarterback that I really like, and that defense is going to be one of the best in the conference. But I'm going to go with the safer bet here. I'm saying UTSA against Memphis. I think the Roadrunners finally get it done. They finally win the American Conference. They have the best quarterback. They have a great running back, a lot of continuity, and Traylor does it.
I like it. I like the pick. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening, participating in the live chat over there on YouTube. If you like the show, make sure you follow us on all the social platforms at Group of Five Guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Believe Network, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Tell your family and friends all about the show. Make sure you go check out Conference USA, MAC, Mountain West, PAC, all on YouTube. And then we will be live Friday morning talking about the Sun Belt. And then it's week 0. We're out of here.